Hello viewers, welcome to our channel. I'm really excited to read this book. Are you? If you didn't subscribe to our channel, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell icon to get more updates on our new video.
Hi everyone, today I'm going to be reading a biography of Abraham Lincoln, lawyer, leader, and legend. I hope you all enjoy this book. So let's get started. Humble beginning. The log cabin's floor was packed with dirt. The crude bed was made for poles, corn husks, and bear skins. The only window looked out on the wilderness of Sinking Spring Farm near Hodgenville, Kentucky. In this uninspiring setting on February 12, 1809, Abraham Lincoln was born. Abe's father, Thomas, could barely write his own name, but the farmer and social carpenter was a great storyteller. Abe's mother, Nancy, couldn't read or write at all, but she was a good, kind woman. Lincoln's cabin replica. I'm sorry if you can't see it that well. You might. So here's the map of the United States, and then here, new nation. When Abe was born, America had only been a country for 33 years. Much as the nation was still unsettled wilderness, there was only 17 states in the Union. Now there are 50. So that means there's 43 states that were not there in the United States when Abe was born, or Abraham Lincoln. The Lincolns soon moved to a farm on the Cumberland Trail, a road used by pioneers. Abe helped with the chores. He also set up traps for rabbits and muskrats. He followed bees to their honey trees. Abe watched the travelers heading west on the trail. Settlers searching for new homes, peddlers, preachers, and sometimes slaves driven south to be sold. Southern slaves. A slave is a person forced to work for someone else. Many Southern Americans owned slaves to work their big farms. The slaves were captured in Africa, then brought to slave markets in the U.S. Abe went to school in a small windowless cabin called a blab school. Students would blab their lesson out loud, over and over, until they knew them by heart. Abe went to school by littles, and a little now and then, when there weren't too many chores, Abe and his sister Sarah walked many miles to school. Learning was hard for Abe, but once the shy boy got hold for the new world or idea, Abe knew it forever. It's getting quite interesting. Thomas Lincoln, aka Abe's dad, didn't like slavery, so he decided to move to a territory where there were no slaves. They traveled west for 2 weeks to reach Little Pigeon Creek in Indiana. 7-year-old Abe helped clear the family's new land. Abe was skinny, but good with an axe. That winter, the Lincolns lived in a shelter of poles, brush, and leaves until Thomas built a cabin. They hunted and also ate honey, nuts, and wild fruit. Then Nancy got very sick. One day she told Sarah and 9-year-old Abe to be good and kind to their father and each other, and to the world. Then she died. Okay, that's sad. Abe was heartbroken. Without her mother, Abe and Sarah were soon ragged and dirty. Wait, does that mean they bath her? I have no idea. Learning and laws. But Abe wasn't motherless for long. The next year, Thomas married Sally, a widow with 3 children of her own. They all lived in the cabin with Abe's orphaned cousin, Dennis, too. Wait, that reminds me from the book called Sisters. And that's, yeah, for some reason, Dennis daily goes queasy. So, okay, whatever. The home was crowded but happy. Even though Sally couldn't read or write, she encouraged Abe's love of learning. Heroes of history. Abe was inspired by the life of George Washington. General Washington commanded the Continental Army during the American Revolution and was the first president of the United States. Abe also admired Benjamin Franklin. As a boy, Franklin was poor as Abe, but through talent and hard work, he became an important inventor and statesman. George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. Abe would gladly walk 50 miles to borrow a new book. He copied down ideas he liked and wrote about subjects, cruelty to animals, and why American government was great. Through reading, Abe met heroes like George Washington, people who had changed the world. Abe flew to exciting lands on the magic carpet of words and imagination. He read the Arabian Nights to his cousin. So that's actually not true. To his cousin. Dennis called the Toxic adventure a pack of lies, but Abe replied they were mighty fine lies, seen from the Arabian Nights. At church, Abe watched the preachers wave their arms and heard how they raised and lowered their voices to get audiences' attention. On the way home, Abe would hop on the stump and repeat the sermon word for word. His friends laughed as Abe imitated the preacher's every move. A stump speaker is a politician who makes informal speeches wherever people gather. Stump speakers used to stand on stumps like Abe so they could be seen above the crowd. Abe learned at the early age how to entertain an audience with Volsky humor. Floatboats were used to ferry cargo or passengers across the shallow water on rivers. Poles were used to push flatboats along. Abe pulled a flatboat to earn money when he was a young man. Abe heard more speeches when traveling. Court came to Boontonville, Indiana. A judge and lawyers would travel from town to town to hold trials. Abe listened at the lawyers, so that means these are the lawyers, presented their cases. It never occurred to Abe that he might become a lawyer. Those smart, important men seemed the world away. Then one day, Abe was pulling a flatboat. He took two gentlemen across the river. Each tipped $50. Abe had never earned so much money so fast. What? So that means even each of them gave them 50 cents. Does that mean he earns like 25 cents or less? That is sad. He wondered what else he could do if he tried. When Abe was 19, a farmer hired him to take cargo goods to New Orleans. And guys, he's only 19, and he's also in Indiana. It's like, if you picture the map like right here, like Indiana's right here, and New Orleans is like, I think down here or all the way up there. Or is it down here? I think it's around this area, I guess. Or like, yoink. I know it's definitely not in this area in the United States. I think it's around the southern. Okay, let's get back. There, Abe saw slave markets for the first time. He was horrified. A few years later, Abe moved to the town of New Salem. I don't have no idea that was even a thing. He ran a store and became popular because his customers... Okay, let's pause a period for some reason. Slaves for sale. At the slave market, people were sold like animals to whoever offered the most money. Families were often separated, never to see their loved ones again. Gee, that is really sad, but at least it's over. Okay, customers loved his stories, his kindness, and his honesty. Then the skinny storekeeper took the country's toughest wrestler. The giant was so impressed by Abe's strength, they became friends. Abe became a hero. Abe was working hard to be someone important. He convinced the town schoolmaster to teach him grammar and elocution, the art of speaking clearly. Abe joined the New Salem debating society to learn the proper way to present his opinions. He studied law, politics, and history, as he always had in stolen moments. Whenever he could, he decided to run for the Illinois State. Okay, if you want to search it up, it's Legislature. Then the Indian warriors crossed the Mississippi River to Illinois. White settlers panicked. What if the tribes took them back to their land? Black Hawk was the leader of the Sauk and Fox tribes who briefly invaded Illinois back in the Black Hawk War. Abe joined the temporary army. His troop elected him as captain. Abe became friends with a lawyer named John Todd Stewart, but he never fought anything tougher than mosquitoes or boredom. Like many skirmishes between settlers, the Native Americans, the Black Hawk War ended quickly. After the war, Abe had only 2 weeks to campaign. He lost the election. Abe wound up working as New Salem's postmaster. Abe met many people through his new job. He decided to campaign again. Abe used every chance to get votes. He talked to people at dances, house building parties, and even at wrestling matches. Abe was often to referee because everyone trusted him. Victories and vows. It's been only 15 minutes and we're only on page 20. Wait, does that mean slave states? So that means, okay. At least New Jersey's part of the free states. Sorry, these things and the territories are all the way here. The slave states are right here. Oh my gosh. Florida's been almost a slave state. Okay. This time Abe won the election and went to the state legislature in Vandalia, Illinois' capital. There Abe renewed his friendship with John Todd Stewart, who is also a lawmaker. Stewart let Abe borrow his law books. Abe studied by littles. Whenever he could, when Abe got his law's license, he was invited to join John Stewart's company in Springfield, Illinois. Abe campaigned to move the Illinois capital to Springfield. He wanted his new town to be an important place. Before long, Springfield was the capital, and Abe was at the center of Illinois politics. Abe spoke out against slavery and lynch mobs, and crowds who hunted down and hanged escaped slaves. But Abe was not one of them. The abolitionists trying to ban slavery. Abe believed the government should keep new territories free, not try to abolish slavery where it already existed. So here's the map, as you can see. So here it means slave states, and this means free states, and then all this gray means territories. He almost got eaten up. He's just surrounded by slaves. When Abe first spoke out against slavery, all the southern and few northern states were slave states. There was a great debate about whether slavery should be allowed in new territories. Abe was a busy lar of 30 when he met a woman who seemed his opposite. Abe was tall, thin, awkward, and unrefined. Mary Todd was short, plump, stylish, and charming. He came from a log cabin. She had been raised in luxury. Lincoln's look. Abe's rumpled clothes made it clear to people that his mind was on more important things than fashion. His long legs poked from his plain pant legs. His boots were dusty from walking. Abe carried his papers in a tall stoopy that had made him seem even taller than his 6'4". Once people met him, they never forgot Abe. Mary Todd. Opposite of slavery, but her father owned slaves on his large farm in Kentucky. Mary happened to be the cousin of Abe's law friend John Stuart, and attended fancy private schools. Mary spoke French and knew all the latest dance steps. But beneath the surface, Abe and Mary had much in common. Both cared deeply about justice, politics, and poetry, and both had lost their mothers at a young age. By the time Abe was 33, he had realized that Mary Todd was the woman for him. Mary was very popular, but she chose Abe. They got married on November 4th, 1842, and started saving to buy a house within a year. Abe had a son, Robert, and bought his first home, a cottage on a nice street in Springfield. The Lincolns added rooms to their cottage, and Mary gave birth to another son. But Eddie died when he was not quite 4. Wait, what? Not even 4? That's sad. Really sad. Shortly after his death, Mary gave birth to William, then Thomas, who became known as Tad. Abe doted on his boys, especially little Tad. Mary loved them too, but she never quite got over Eddie's death. Abe and Tad, the Lincoln home in Springfield, Illinois. On the move, Abe was elected to Congress, so the Lincolns moved to Washington, D.C. Abe saw slave markets in the country capital. The Constitution said all men are created equal. How could people be sold like animals? Abe proposed a law to abolish slavery in Washington. The law did not pass, and Abe lost his second term. Ending slavery would not be easy. Abe went back to Springfield but joined the 8th Circuit Court. This traveling court brought justice to small towns like the trials he'd seen as a young man. Abe spent half of his year sleeping on farmhouse floors or sharing beds in crowded taverns. Between cases, the lawyers joked, sang, and played cards. Abe could forget the fancy manners and help simple folk. The Eighth Circuit Court served the entire state of Illinois. The judge, Abe and the other lawyers traveled 500 miles on horseback. Then the newly built railroads. The work was challenging. The lawyers rode into town, found silent clients, then presented their cases right away. One time in New Salem, Abe was asked to defend an old friend named Duff, who was accused of murder. The witness claimed he saw Duff killed by the light on the full moon. But with the almanac, Abe proved the moon was just silver on that night. So the witness was lying. Duff was free by nightfall. Fact book. An almanac is a book of information about a given year. It tells the times of sunrise and the sunset for that year, as well as cycles of the moon. Farmers can use an almanac to predict the weather and decide when to plant crops. Abe had spent his whole life learning to speak. He was not a handsome man, and his voice was shrill, but when Abe spoke, the power of emotion shone in his eyes, and people were moved. Abe was a happy lawyer, but he didn't want to make sure slavery didn't spread into the new territories. So he ran for the Senate. Abe gave a speech calling America a house divide. He said, "This government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. It will become all one thing or all the other." Oh, my neck hurts. Abe's opponent was a famous politician named Stephen A. Douglas. Douglas saw no need to outlaw slavery in the new territories since the land wasn't right for the tobacco, cotton, or other slave crops. Abe thought Congress had to preserve the new states as places for poor people to go and better their condition. Abe suggested a series of debates, the result of the American greatest duel of words. Abe lost the election but won Alcium. Just as he had wrestled the strongest man in New Salem, Abe had battled the politic giant and proved himself a man worth watching. And by forcing Douglas to take public stand, Abe made slavery the issue of the day. Douglas was well-dressed, well-fed statesman who traveled to each debate in his own private railroad car. Abe arrived in the crowded public train and then rode a hay wagon to his hotel. The two candidates were as different as a purebred poodle and a farmyard hound. Just 2 years later, in 1860, the Republican Party chose Abe to run president. Abe had helped form the new party, but did not expect this honor. Party politics. The Republican Party was created in Illinois in 1856. They favored rule by representation rather than direct vote. During Lincoln's time, there were several other political parties, including the Democrats, Whigs, and Constitutional Union. The Democrat Party was founded in 1830 on the principles of government by the people and equal rights for all, created in 1836. The Whig Party opposed the Democrats until it dissolved in 1856. Originally, Whigs were those who supported by the American Revolution, Democrat Party symbol, Republican Party symbol. Springfield went wild. A Republican parade that passed the Lincoln home contained so many people. It took 8 hours to pass the House. There were more than two candidates running for president that year. Abe only received 40% of the votes, but he won. However, Abe lost in every southern state. Newspapers raged against Lincoln's anti-slavery stance. They even urged the South to prepare for war. A house divided. Abe had come a long way from the shy schoolboy, the new storekeeper, and the defeated congressman. Now he was President of the United States, Confederate States of America. Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas joined South Carolina to make up the first 7 states in the Confederate States of America. Jefferson Davis was elected as their president. But even as Abe rode the presidential train from Springfield to the White House, the United States stopped being united. South Carolina left the Union, followed by 6 other southern states. They called themselves the Confederate States of America. They raised a flag, adopted a slavery-protecting construction, and elected their own president. And many Confederate states wanted Abe dead. Though crowds still cheered at every station, Abe's journey had become dangerous. When his train reached Washington, D.C., Abe took off his stovepipe hat and sneaked into the White House in disguise. On his first night in the White House, Abe learned that Confederate warships and cannons were threatening Fort Sumter, a Union fort in South Carolina. To make things worse, Fort Sumter was running out of supplies. Should Abe risk war by sending troops? Should he send food and guns so the fort could defend itself? Could the troops somehow just leave? Abe asked his advisors, but they all said different things. Abe paced the White House. He wanted to avoid a war. Finally, he decided to send supplies. Then the Confederate troops bombed Fort Sumter. The Civil War had begun. Abe thought the war would end quickly. Instead of blood-soaked the land for weeks, months, and years, Abe's generals somehow never won. They always stopped short of complete victory. Abe chose new generals, but they also proved timid. Abe knew about war only from books and his 3 months fighting. Mosquitoes and boredom in the Black Hawk War. What should he do when Abe's 11-year-old son, Willie, caught a mysterious fever? The doctors were at loss. Mary was frantic. 8-year-old Tad also got sick. The president was weighed down with worry. His only relief was going to the theater. There he could watch a play and forget his problems for a short time. Free Frontier. Most of Abe's presidency was taken up with the Civil War, but he also helped tame the West on May 20, 1862. Abe approved the Federal Homestead Act, which offered Western land free to anyone brave or desperate enough to settle in the wild territory. Thousands rushed across the Mississippi River to stake their claims and dig their destiny to free soil. Poster advertising free, undeveloped land in the West. You can take a look at that poster. Okay. Pain, then Union. Willie died in February. Mary was too sad to even go to the funeral. Ted got better, but when the war dragged on, 7 months after Willie's death, on September 17, 1862, America suffered its bloodiest day. The Battle of Antietam, Maryland. Nearly 5,000 men died and over 2,000 were wounded. The Union won the battle, but no one felt like celebrating. On January 1st, 1863, Abe's Emancipation Proclamation was passed. Civil War medicine was crude. Painkillers were rare. Doctors were very excited by the new discovery that washing their hands between operations could reduce the spread of germs. President Lincoln reads a draft of the Emancipation Proclamation to his cabinet. Emancipation means to set free. A proclamation is a formal statement. Abolitionists hated Abe's Emancipation Proclamation because it only freed slaves in the South and let Northern blacks join the Union Army. Southerns thought Abe had no right to tell them what to do. He wasn't even their president anymore. So once we get to this part, I'm not really going to read this because, you can take a photo. I'll make a zoom up. Okay. On July 4th, 1863, the Union won a great victory at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. But so many men died that it seemed better to build a national cemetery on the spot than ship all the bodies home. At cemetery's dedication on November 19, 1863, Abe gave the most. You can read this. I'll just hold this. Now pause it. Okay, let's continue. Abe gave his most famous speech at the Gettysburg Address. Lasted less than 3 minutes and touched on a topic from one of Abe's Blab School essays, the scraddiness of American government. Abe wanted to make the Union whole again. He also pushed for an addition called an amendment to the Constitution that would abolish slavery in America. The 13th Amendment would succeed where the Emancipation Proclamation had failed. Abe ran for a second term. He was re-elected in 1864. He won a vast. For the entire day after the Southern surrender, crowds outside the White House surrendered Abe. The president asked the band to play a Southern anthem, Dixie. Abe said it was one of the best tunes I'd ever heard. He won a vast majority, but he still received hate mail and threats. Still, Abe achieved his goals. On January 31st, 1865, the 13th Amendment officially ended slavery in America. and on April 9th, the South surrendered. And a few nights later, Abe and Mary went to the Ford's Theatre to enjoy a comedy. But as they laughed, an angry actor plotted tragedy. John Wilkes, Booth, and his friends thought Abe had ruined America, and only his death would save the South. So during the play, Booth sneaked up behind Abe and shot him in the head. John Wilkes Booth makes his escape after shooting the president. I'll show you up close. There is John Wilkes running. Okay. Well, that's sad. Abe never opened his eyes again. He died early the next morning. On April 21st, 1865, Abe began a journey that would almost exactly reverse his 1860 trip to the White House. The 9-car funeral train stopped at the 11 cities as it chugged slowly across the country. Along the way, America's mourned with gunshots, bonfires, songs, prayers, and flowers. The nation cried for a man who had given his life to preserving the ideal of freedom. As Abe said in his Gettysburg Address, that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. So here's Abe's funeral train. That's a train. Okay, here's a big photo of Abe Abraham Lincoln in the White House. The Lincoln Memorial. So the 20-foot tall statue of Abe inside the Lincoln Memorial is made of 28 blocks of white marble fitted together so expertly that it looks like one piece. Each year, more than 4 million people visit the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. So, that was the book of Abraham Lincoln, War, Leader, and a Legend. I hope you like this book. Bye!
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel, comment your opinion, and give a thumbs up. I'll see you in our next video. Bye!